Hello, friends, and welcome to Miss Hope's Reading Hour on our special broadcast. Tonight, we will be reading the rest of our mystery chapter book titled Who is Stealing the 12 Days of Christmas? We will be finishing it tonight. So get ready to find out. Is Yasmeen the person who has been behind the thefts? Who robbed the Mega Menagerie? And will the kids find out who did it all by themselves, or will they get help from the grownups? That is what we will find out tonight. Hello, everybody. Since we are reading our mystery tonight and finishing it tonight, I want it to be a little mysterious, okay? Welcome to Miss Hope's Reading Hour, our last broadcast for the year. This is our last one. Can you believe it? From April to now. From April until the 26th of December. Can you believe that we have read so many books? Okay. I do believe we have read every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, with a Tuesday and a Thursday sprinkled in there when there was maybe me being sick or there being some technical difficulties. Between all those Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we may have read close to 200 books. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? So we are now at our last broadcast for the year. Again, just to let you guys know, not yesterday, I'm sorry. So today's Saturday. So today's Saturday. So Thursday. Yes, Thursday. On our Thursday broadcast, I let you guys know that Miss Hope's Reading Hour will be on a small break for the holiday, and we will come back and start broadcasting on another holiday. What is that holiday? It has to do with someone's birthday. I wonder whose. It's mine. So on January the 6th, on Wednesday, January the 6th, Miss Hope's Reading Hour will be back on my birthday. Okay. So I look forward to seeing you all, Lord willing, in the new year on my birthday with some new books. Now, just to let you know, since we have read so many books, I would like to thank every person who has ever donated, no matter how big or how small, to Miss Hope's Reading Hour. We have had donations as low as $5 and as high as $150. And I am grateful for every donation. And I know that those who are viewers and listeners of Miss Hope's Reading Hour are also grateful for your donations. And some of you have been the ones who have donated. So thank you so much for your donations. I do not take it for granted. Just to let you know, I do not take being able to do this for you all for granted. In the beginning, in April, when the whole pandemic thing started, I was, we who work in public school here in Philadelphia, we thought, oh, well, we'll be out for a month. And then it turned into indefinitely. And after a month, I missed my kids so much. And I was thinking that, all of this must be really scary for children who are in school. not to know what's going on. All of a sudden, you're plucked out of school. Then you find out about, an illness that can really be dangerous. Parents losing jobs, different things going on in the home. And this must be a really hard time for children. And so that is the reason why I started and continue Miss Hope's Reading Hour for those children and those families, because originally all I wanted to do was offer a time to relax and to have some time with your children, or maybe for parents who are at home with the kids, helping them all day with virtual school, that maybe Miss Hope's Reading Hour could be a time for your child to sit and watch and listen to great books and great literature, and give you a little bit of time to maybe get the dinner done or take a breather, or you can all take a breather together while you're sitting and listening to these stories. And one thing I did find is that many of my adult friends actually love the reading hour. So I'm really happy and really overjoyed and humbled by what Miss Hope's Reading Hour has meant to some people. And I really ask that maybe during this week that Miss Hope's Reading Hour is not on, this time between now and January the 6th, that you could leave a comment either on Facebook or Instagram or one of the YouTube videos or on Periscope to let me know how Miss Hope's Reading Hour has impacted you in any way. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to come into your homes and on your computers and on your phones and to offer this moment of just sitting and listening and sometimes sparking your imagination, because it's kind of hard to be home all the time and not able to move around all the ways that you want. But books can take you anywhere. And I've always believed that. So thank you so much for allowing me to come into your homes and to entertain you, to make you happy, to make you think of a faraway land, to make you laugh. Thank you so much. And I'm very humbled and honored to be able to do it for you, and can't wait to come back with some more books on January the 6th. With that being said, okay, as you can see right down here in the ticker, we have read many books, and our library has gone from this to this to this to this to this, and now we're back getting down to the wire of our books. So if you would like to donate to Miss Hope's Reading Hour so that we can continue offering great literature to children and families, please do donate whatever amount that you can. Please do donate to Miss Hope's Reading Hour by going to my Cash App, which my Cash App is $HopeGM. That's HOPEGM, all lowercase, all one word. No special characters except for the $, HopeGM. Or you can send a digital gift card, a Visa one to your favorite book retailer, from your favorite book retailer, and send it to our email address at misshopesrh@gmail.com. That's MSHOPESRH@gmail.com. So please feel free at any time to donate via Cash App or by sending digital gift cards to that email address. Also, if you would like to bring me or send me books, please do that. Many of our donations that we have read along the way have come from people who said, Miss Hope, I found these books, or I had these books, and I want to donate them to you. Can I bring them to you? If people were in Philadelphia, they were like, can I bring them to you? Or you can send them to me in the mail. And if you want to do that, get in touch with me on from the email and let me know that, and I can give you the information to send me those books. Okay. Well, our last thing to say before we get to our mystery is this wonderful sneaky music that you're listening to, and the book that we are reading today. Miss Hope does not own, and Miss Hope's Reading Hour does not own any of the rights to those things, but they are here for your listening and reading enjoyment. Okay? One last thing I wanted to say before I read. Many people kind of take lightly what read alouds, which is what I do to help children to read better. Children read better and comprehend better when they hear more words. And read alouds help with children being able to hear more words and comprehend what's going on in stories once they start reading. So never take it for granted. Getting a book, sitting maybe at bedtime and reading a story to your child. It helps more than you know. And that's part of the reason too that I do Miss Hope's Reading Hour. Because sometimes parents are like, I want to find a book to read to my child at home or to read to my child at bedtime. And, you don't always know which books to get. And that's why I try to get a lot of different books that aren't read most of the time. So I can give you ideas of books that you may want to purchase for yourself and for your home library, for your children, or for your students. All right. So with that being said, let us get to the conclusion of Who is Stealing the 12 Days of Christmas by Martha Freeman. This is a scholastic book. So, my friends, where we ended, we were in chapter 18. Okay. And Yasmeen and Alex and Yasmeen have gone to the Ryans' house because they want to examine the duck that was used for, let me see. So they wanted to examine the duck that was used as one of the Ryans' birds in their display. But they realized it's a huge rubber ducky. And if it's a huge rubber duckies aren't like the other birds. They're usually closed off at the bottom. So they asked Mr. Ryan, can we look, Mrs. Ryan, who's a teacher, can we look at your rubber ducky? And she said, fine, just go ahead, just as long as you leave me alone, because I'm a teacher. And now I feel like I don't have enough time to prepare for Christmas. So go ahead, have at it. And so they went and looked, and lo and behold, there was a hole cut in the bottom of the rubber duck. But they didn't find out yet what was inside of it. Because if you ever had a rubber ducky, the bottom of it has a little hole, but you can't reach up and put anything in there. And Yasmeen had an idea and thought, maybe someone cut a hole in it. And they absolutely did cut a hole in it. I was like, oh boy, they were absolutely right. Someone cut a hole in it. And that's where we ended, where they saw it covered by cardboard. It had been glued, I think with a board or cardboard, been glued to the bottom of the hole that they had cut in the rubber ducky. What clue will they find in there? That is the question. Continuing chapter 18. All right, let's start from this page. My best friend didn't even notice. She bent down to get the ducky. She flipped it over. Yes. Let me see. Yasmeen held it up. We were right, I said. The bottom of the ducky was not rubber the way it should have been. It was glued on cardboard. I took the ducky from Yasmeen and studied the cardboard. It was plain brown, no marks at all. That seemed unfair. Shouldn't there be a secret code or something? Someone cut the rubber out, said Yasmeen. Then they put a mouse in and glued cardboard on. I nodded. After that, the treasure hunter stole the ducky, took the mouse out, and glued the cardboard back, I said. Yasmeen high-fived me. We are brilliant, she said. Except we already knew all that, I said. We didn't know. We suspected, said Yasmeen. Now we know. And we know something else, too. What? Whoever stole it was a good tree climber. Or else they had a cat, I said. Let's ask Mrs. Ryan if she's seen anything unusual, Yasmeen said. And I hope she's got more construction paper. Look, the fall from the dogwood tree had flattened the fake partridge's beak. The Ryans' house was messy inside, wrapping paper and gift boxes everywhere. Now Mrs. Ryan's hands were covered with flour. There was a green streak on her nose, the tape that was still in her hair. She showed us the ducky's bottom. We showed her the ducky's bottom. She said. Looks like he's had a duckectomy. He needs a beak too, Yasmeen said. Later for that, she said. Anything else you need? I asked if she had seen anything suspicious. At the same time, Yasmeen asked, what's that smell? There was a funny smell, all right. Something cooking, something burning. Mrs. Ryan slapped her hand to her forehead, leaving a flour handprint. My famous Christmas cookies! We ran into the kitchen. Mrs. Ryan pulled the cookie sheet from the oven. We all stared. They weren't as black as I'd expected. No matter, said Mrs. Ryan. This batch is for Bill's relatives. Hardly a taste bud among them. Now something suspicious. Not that I can think of. Did you want to take a look at the cardboard, though? We did, I said. No marks. What about the other side? Mrs. Ryan asked. Yasmeen and I looked at each other. Forget about brilliant. We were a couple of idiots. Is it okay? Yasmeen asked. Sure, Mrs. Ryan handed the ducky over. Poor guy needs a plastic surgeon anyway. One more indignity won't matter. Use the butter knife. Top drawer. I'll just get on with my frosting. With the knife, I wedged the cardboard off the ducky. It took a few seconds before it popped free. I flipped it over. Mrs. Ryan had been right. This side wasn't blank. It was shiny yellow with a pattern made out of red letters. ADS, ADS, ADS. It was familiar, but for a second I couldn't place it. Mrs. Ryan looked over my shoulder. Al's delivery service, she said. Well, isn't that a coincidence? Look. She nodded at the kitchen window. Sure enough, Al was just pulling up outside Bub's house. Come on, said Yasmeen. Hey, Mrs. Ryan followed us to the door. Wouldn't you kids like a couple of toasted Christmas cookies? Chapter 19. We turned down the cookies. We dashed out the door. We were so speedy that we arrived on Bub's porch only steps behind Al. Luau was already there. Afternoon, kids, Al said. Coming for soup too? Tuesday's minestrone. Means big soup in Italian. Bub makes the biggest yet. We're detecting, Yasmeen sounded very serious. We want to ask you some questions. Me? Al said. And at that moment, Bub's door opened. Hail, hail, said Bub. Right this way. Soup turned out really well. I've got coffee too. Al whispered to us, stay away from the coffee. It sits on the stove all day, just like the soup. For coffee, it's deadly. I guess Yasmeen was so excited about detecting she forgot about Bub's cooties and getting in trouble. She followed Al into Bub's house, no hesitation. I followed her. The front door opened on a hallway. The picnic cooler Bub's niece had brought was sitting there. To the right was the living room, which also had a dining table. Beyond the table was the kitchen. Luau went right by the living room and up the hallway. Then he did the bump, bump, bump thing against the closed door on the left. Mr. Kitty. Bub shook his head. Stay out of there. He picked Luau up, carried him into the living room, and dropped him into the recliner by the TV. Looks like Humphrey Bogart again, he said. Al hung his coat on the back of a chair and sat down at the dining table. He cleared newspapers away to make space for himself. Yasmeen and I hung back. Now that we were in, what were we supposed to do? Sit yourselves down, kids, Bub said from the kitchen. Did you know I'm a very important person? Al said. These kids have questions for me. Detective questions. Do tell. Bub came out with a bowl of soup, a spoon, and a paper towel. He set them on the table in front of Al. 2 more coming. Yasmeen and I argued, but Bub ignored us. Soon there were 3 bowls of soup on the table along with 3 paper towel napkins. What else could we do? We sat down. The Queen of England won't be dining with us today, Bub said, so there's no need to stand on ceremony. Eat up. The soup smelled good, and I missed lunch. Good, I said between slurps. In fact, so good, I forgot about detecting. But not Yasmeen. She ate 1 dainty bite and laid her spoon down. She pulled the cardboard ducky bottom out of her pocket. She held it up for Al to see. Do you recognize this? She asked him. Yasmeen must have been watching movies like the one Luau was looking at now. I think she expected Al to break down and confess he was the bird thief. And maybe the mouse thief too. But he didn't. He took the cardboard from her and said, a piece cut out of one of my boxes. Where'd you get it? Yasmeen looked crushed. You don't know? She said. Al pushed his bowl away. Superb as always, he told Bub. Good time for coffee. Got time for coffee? Sorry. Again, we don't have on our glasses. Got time for coffee? Bub asked him. Al was already standing, putting on his coat. Oh no, he said. Not this week. I've got a delivery right here for Sophie and Byron. Man, my sister buys them a lot of toys. Then I go downtown for Mrs. Miggins. After that, over the mountain to Bellburg for a pickup. All before 3. Before you go, I said, could I ask you something? Al smiled. Sure, if you make it snappy. Who besides you would have your boxes? All kinds of people, he said. The ones I just mentioned for starters. The Sikora's kids, Mrs. Miggins. Probably everybody I deliver to has a box kicking around. Why? Is that cardboard some kind of clue or something? Some kind, but not the good kind, I guess, Yasmeen said. Al said he was sorry he couldn't help, and he headed for the door. Halfway across the room, he nodded at the picture window. Looky here who's coming up the walk, he said to Bub. Guess the authorities have caught up with you at last. Bub looked. It was only a matter of time. He held his wrists out like he was ready for handcuffs. I'll go quietly. I heard footsteps on the porch. Then Al opened the front door. Hey, officer, he said. I got a scoot, but the culprit says to come right in. Chapter 20. Yasmeen and I looked at each other. What was going on? Was Bub really going to be arrested? Did this mean he was the thief? And Officer Crishells had solved the mystery already? That he had beaten Yasmeen and me? Officer Crishells walked into the living room. He was tall and had a kind face, but now he looked stern. I expected him to pull out handcuffs, but instead he went over to the recliner and petted Luau. This one's yours, right, Alex? Has he got a license? Oh, now you need a license to watch a movie, do you? Bub asked. What's the world coming to? I meant, Officer Crishells started to say. I know what you meant, Bub said. Want some soup? Officer Crishells smiled and took a seat next to me. Why else would I be here? You mean you're not going to arrest Bub? Yasmeen said. Officer Crishells laughed. That coffee of his, it's a crime, all right. Oh, what do cops know about coffee? Bub said. Anyhow, your soup makes up for it, Officer Crishells went on. Thanks very much. Bub set a bowl of soup in front of him. Officer Crishells wasted no time eating it. Meanwhile, I was trying to figure out what to do next. We would have to tell him about our evidence now. We didn't have any excuse not to. Yasmeen elbowed me, and I knew she was thinking the same thing. Officer Crishells, I began. We have something to tell you. I'm all ears, he said. So I told him everything we knew, even the parts I hadn't told my mom yet. I told him about chasing the shape, finding the mice with the milkmaids, the treasure map, the ducky's bottom. When I got to the last part, Yasmeen handed him the piece of cardboard. He took it, but didn't study it the way I thought he should have. Finally, I was done talking, and he said, well, you kids have done some fine detective work, I must say. At the same time, he scratched his head. What? Yasmeen said. It's a little far-fetched, don't you think? Treasure maps, mice hidden inside birds. But we've got the evidence, I said. We can show you the map. It's at my house. Officer Crishells nodded and smiled. I'm sure you do, kids. The thing is, I've pretty much got it figured out on my own, just as your mom thought, Alex. A kid prank. What? I said. How do you know? Yasmeen said. Well, it is official police business, Officer Crishells said. But I guess I can tell you. It should be all wrapped up neat this very afternoon. You see, the last stolen bird has been found. Mr. Stone's calling bird, Yasmeen said. Where? Officer Crishells nodded. In the bird bath. What bird bath? Yasmeen asked. But of course, I already knew. There is only a single bird bath on our street. It's one of Luau's favorite hangouts, and it belongs to the Sikoras. Chapter 21. Before Officer Crishells left, he explained how he knew about the lost bird. It was a tip, he said, and guess what? It came from my favorite blabbermouth friend, Russell. I bet he had been positively thrilled to phone the police about it. Officer Crishells pulled his notebook from his pocket and studied what was written in it. Our dispatcher, Angie Price, took it down, he said. The informant, your friend Russell, called us shortly after noon today. It seems his brother, Graham, age 5, was over at the Sikora's residence this morning. It was Grandma who observed the incriminating evidence, the calling bird, in the bird bath. That's weird, I said. Graham and Byron Sikora are the same age, but usually they don't get along at all. Officer Critchell shrugged. I'm only telling you what was told to me, he said. Anyhow, I'm on my way to the Socorros to interview those kids. Sounds like one of them must be the perpetrator. The thief, I mean. I understand young Sophie has a bit of a reputation. But what about our evidence, Yasmeen said. The Mega Menagerie burglary must be connected to the birds missing from the 12-day display. Alex found those mice in my yard. That's too big a coincidence. Officer Critchell gave us one of those exasperating looks that grown-ups are always giving kids. I've spent many a long year in the law enforcement game, he said. And one thing I know is this: coincidences happen. Can we come with you to interview Sophie and Byron? Yasmeen asked. Officer Critchell shook his head. Official police business, kids. What if it got ugly? I can't put law-abiding public, which in this case is you, at risk. I was having a hard time imagining what kind of ugly Officer Critchell anticipated. Did he think Sophie and Byron might pull out their squirt guns? But he was already standing to leave. There was nothing we could say. When Officer Critchell was gone, Bub surprised me. Fred Critchell is a kind man and a good friend, he said, but no one ever accused him of being a brain. Personally, I thought you kids made a lot of sense. Thanks, I said. Yasmeen looked sad, but then she smiled. Anyway, Mr. Stone will be happy. And there's another good thing, too. We keep trying to share our evidence with the police. They keep not caring. So our detecting continues. Here's what I think, Alex. I think the time has come to write a list of suspects. You can do that only if you have a list of suspects, Bub said. Do you? Yeah. Do we? I echoed. Yasmeen shrugged. We will as soon as we make one. Bub got up from the table and rooted around in a drawer. I've got a pencil and paper right here, he said. I've seen my share of mysteries on TV. Maybe I can help. But before he found what he wanted, there were more footsteps outside, and the front door opened again. Wow, I said. This place is as busy as a restaurant. Bub smiled. Credit to low, low prices. The latest visitor turned out to be Jo, Bub's niece. As she fluttered around, removing her coat and mittens, she reminded me of a sparrow, small and quick. I guess I had birds on the brain. Sorry I'm late, she said. I had one last paper to turn in. It was about Polish Christmas traditions. Isn't that appropriate? Bub said. Bubs and my family came from Poland a long time ago, Jo explained. Now that the paper's done, I can concentrate on the real thing. Christmas for Bub. Bub twirled one finger in the air. Oh, joy. Jo ignored him. So, shall we get right to it? I've got a lot to do before tomorrow. And besides, I don't want to lose my nerve, she nodded at the cooler. Bub sighed. If you say so, he said. Kids, I'm sorry. I guess that list of suspects will have to wait. My niece and I have some business. I felt embarrassed. Was there something he didn't want us to see? Just let me get luau, I said. Good idea, Bub said. No telling what he'd do if he saw what Jo and I are up to. We were barely out the door when Yasmeen made an announcement. I have it all figured out. You do, I said. She nodded. I know what's in the bathtub. I know you stole the birds. I know everything. Meow, Luau said in my ear, and it meant I know something too, in case you were wondering. So what else is new, I thought. Everybody's smarter than me, even my own cat. Okay, I said. Let's pretend I believe you. What? Chapter 22. Yasmeen might know everything, but she wasn't ready to tell me yet. First, she wanted to go make a detour to the Socorro's backyard. I agreed. What kind of detectives would we be if we didn't take a look at that bird bath ourselves? Officer Crishel's car was still out front. I wondered what was going on inside the house. Had Sophie confessed? Was she really the thief? Is that what Yasmeen had figured out? We stayed close to the Ryans' house as we jogged between it and the Sakura's fence, where we could see into the backyard. We weren't precisely sneaking, but we didn't want anyone to look out and see us either. Sure enough, when we looked over the fence, the calling bird was sitting in the bird bath. It looked very funny there, funny and wrong. Why would a thief have put it there? All the other birds had been returned to their own flocks. Okay, I said when we were back on the sidewalk. Explain. Yasmeen grinned. It was a grin I didn't like much. About how many mice would fit into that picnic cooler, she asked. We walked up the sidewalk and into my front yard. We walked into my house and I set Luau down. We took off our coats and hung them up. We found a note from my dad on the kitchen table. Gone Christmas shopping, back for dinner. We sat down. All the time, Yasmeen explained her theory to me. Bub had stolen the mice from Mega Menagerie and was keeping them in his bathtub. It was the mice in the bathtub that Luau wanted. That was the reason he had been visiting Bub lately. The shape I chased last night, it was Joe. Hadn't I said the shape was small and quick? Anyway, that was why Bub seemed so eager to help us come up with our list just now. He wanted to make sure he wasn't on it. The more Yasmeen talked, the sadder I felt. I didn't want it to be Bub. I kind of liked Bub. I definitely liked his soup. But I remembered something. Two somethings. First, Bub said he hated Christmas. Second, he said he liked jokes. A joke was like a prank, right? Mom and Officer Crishel's called the missing birds a kid prank. Well, maybe they were half right. Maybe it was a grown-up prank. Maybe it had nothing to do with mice. Maybe he was just mad at all the neighbors who called his house an eyesore, and this was a way to get back. I didn't think it was funny, but someone else might. Well, Yasmeen concluded, what do you think? I don't want it to be Bub, I said. Alex, we don't get to pick who it is, Yasmeen said. It just is who it is. We can't let feelings get in the way. We have to look at the evidence. That's a detective's job. I never liked detecting, I reminded her. Anyway, let's do what we said before. Let's write a list. It doesn't have to be Bub. Officer Crishel's thinks it's Sophie Sakura. I got a pad and pencil out of the kitchen junk drawer. At the top, I wrote suspects. Then, even though I didn't want to, I wrote Bub and Sophie. Then I wrote why. And after that, I wrote hates Christmas, likes pranks, mysterious cooler, Luau likes bathtub. Wait a minute, I said. Luau started visiting Bub's last week, right? And bumping at the bathroom door. He wanted the mice, said Yasmeen. I shook my head. No, he didn't. Why would Luau care about a tub full of Super Macho Military Mice? Because they're mice, Yasmeen said. You know, cats, mice. Yasmeen, I said patiently. They're not real mice. No blood, no guts, none of that yummy stuff. Yasmeen opened her mouth to argue, then she closed it. My brilliant logic had stopped her. Okay, she said after a minute. If you're so smart, who did it? Mr. Stone, I said, and I wrote that down. What? You heard him at the Jensen's party. The Ryan's ducky has been driving him crazy for years. This year he just snapped my fingers. He probably stole the birds because he wanted everybody to get new ones, make their displays better. But who's the shape? Yasmeen said. Where's the connection to mice? His grandchildren, I said. They don't live far away. One of them is probably the shape. Mr. Stone made the treasure map. He was hiding the mice for them. Yasmeen was thinking this over. I could see the wheels turn. Then she cocked her head. Alex, get real, she said. Can you seriously see an old rickety man like Mr. Stone robbing a toy store? What did he do? Climb in a window? No way. I had to admit that was a problem. Still, I wrote down Mr. Stone on the list. And after, why? I wrote, hates Ryan's ducky, give mice to grandchildren, improve 12-day birds. Anyway, Yasmeen said while I wrote, Mr. Stone gave us hot chocolate. He wouldn't give the detectives hot chocolate if he were the bad guy. By that logic, Bub's innocent too, I said. He gave us soup, didn't he? Besides, now you're letting your feelings get in the way. Am not, said Yasmeen. I came dangerously close to saying R2, which would have been just so pathetic. But luckily, I was stopped by the sound of the speaker outside. On the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a partridge in a pear tree. Yasmeen grinned. Neither of us was tired of that music yet, even though the grown-ups were. To us kids, it always means Christmas. I have a different idea, Yasmeen said. Let's phone Russell. I've been thinking about the calling bird in the bath. It doesn't fit. Where did it come from? Why did it show up this morning? How come the thief didn't put it back with its own flock like he did with the other birds? 4 calling birds, sang the music helpfully. I nodded. Plus, it doesn't make sense that Graham was over there. He thinks Byron's a crybaby. They never play together. We went into the den so I could look up the number. From the den, I could see the tourists outside. Among them tonight was Mrs. Miggins and Leo G. Luau. Luau had noticed them too. He stood at the back of our sofa, swishing his tail. I dialed the phone and asked to speak to Russell. When he came on, I told him we had talked to Officer Crishells. Then I asked him, since when does Graham hang out with Byron? Since never, Russell said. That lady at the police station, the one who wrote down what I said, I thought she sounded kind of confused. It was Billy Jensen who was over there. He saw the bird in the bird bath. He told Graham, and Graham told me. I knew it was evidence, so I called the police. Smart, huh? Very smart, I assured him. Besides, Sophie wrecked my party. I didn't exactly mind turning her in. Did they arrest her? Did they put her in handcuffs and haul her away? I told him I doubted it, but if so, he could read it in the newspaper. Billy Jensen, Yasmeen repeated when I told her what Russell had said. That little gossip? Leave it to him. Anyway, it reminds me, Michael was doing his own detecting, remember? That's what he said when we saw him yesterday. I nodded. I gave him our first piece of evidence, I said. But it doesn't matter now. We've got way better evidence than any old mouse price tag. Maybe Michael knows something, Yasmeen said. Maybe we should pool our information. You mean share, I said. No way. We're going to solve this ourselves. I think I've got it all figured out. Yasmeen looked skeptical. Mr. Stone? I shook my head. Tiny miscalculation there. Okay, genius, she said. What's the latest? I nodded at the window. Mrs. Miggins and Leo G. were looking at the 9 drummers who drum nightly in the Snyder's yard. Mrs. Miggins, I wrote on my list. And it held up for Yasmeen to see. Fine with me, she said. Nobody likes Mrs. Miggins. She's a witch. But why should she rob her own store? I explained what my mom had said about insurance scams. The burglary was fake, I said. She took the mice herself and somebody she knows did. Then she hid them away for a while. That explains how she arranged a mouse delivery in time for Russell's party. That explains how she cleaned everything up so fast. Mom said the door wasn't even damaged. I turned back to my list. Why, I wrote under Mrs. Miggins. Then, insurance money. Clean burglary. Got mice fast. Yasmeen thought about what I had said. Then, who's the shape? I asked. And why would Mrs. Miggins steal the birds or make a map? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe Sophie. Maybe Officer Crishells is right about that. Maybe there's something between Sophie and Mrs. Miggins. Sophie is fast. Maybe she was the shape. Fast but klutzy, said Yasmeen. I can't believe she could run around the neighborhood on ice like that. She'd fall on her face. Or maybe Mrs. Miggins had another partner, I said. But who? Matt was trying to, what did you call it? Corner the market, Yasmeen said. Maybe it was him. Maybe he wants mice more than anybody. It was good and dark by now. We had spent the whole day detecting. We had collected all this great evidence. We had done all this great thinking. My poor brain ached. But as far as I could tell, we weren't any closer to knowing who did this. Can we take a break? I said. I know. Let's go look at the 12-day display. I haven't even walked around to see it at night this year. Yasmeen agreed, and a few minutes later, we were outside with the other tourists. Luau came too. I guess he was afraid we might try to sneak in some detecting without him. My idea was that seeing the decorations might help me to think up an even more brilliant theory. But as soon as I saw them, I forgot all about the crime and criminals. Even though I live with them every year, even though I know how unmagical they look in the daytime, I love seeing the 12-day decorations at night. Looking at them now, all I could think about was Christmas, only 2 days away. Chapter 23. There were quite a few tourists that night. I said hi to Luke, one of the guys at Russell's party, and to Mr. Go, who owns the gas station. In front of the McNitt's house, we caught up with Michael and Billy Jensen. There was no point talking to Billy. He was singing along with something on his Discman. It sounded pretty bad with 12 Days of Christmas playing at the same time. Did you guys hear? Michael had asked us. The police solved the case before I could. There goes my reputation. Don't feel bad, Yasmeen said. It must have been a tough one. I do feel bad, though, Michael said, because I was so far off. I had been thinking maybe Bub, because, well, you know, but the Sikoras had the calling bird. Billy saw it. I guess that's that. Oop, wait a minute. Went on to some other. We got to keep it shadowy. I was afraid Yasmeen might argue with him. She can never resist arguing. To keep her quiet, I said the first thing that popped into my head. Mr. Stone will be really glad to get that bird back, since his family made them and everything. Michael laughed. My mom says if she hears that story one more time. Now Yasmeen interrupted. She had to defend her new best bud, Mr. Stone. But they are nicer than the other birds. Homemade, not plastic. And today, he told us that one was special. His daughter made it. I wondered about the eyes, Michael said. Why do girls like pink so much? Why isn't blue the girl color? That was a good question. I had never thought about it, but Yasmeen said it was a tradition. Same as Christmas colors being green and red. My mom could probably look up where it comes from, she said. She's great at that. While we were talking, Luau went over to see about Leo G. Being king and all, Luau expects any other animal to visit the neighborhood to bow, or at least stand still for a polite sniff. Unfortunately, Leo G didn't know this. He is friendly to all creatures, even muscly orange cats. So when he saw Luau coming, he got all delighted and wagged his tail and stumped his front paw. "Hey, Luau, watch out!" I tried to warn him, but it was too late. Leo G shook his big old slobbery head, and Luau was slime sprayed from nose to tail. Ugh. Wow, wow, he hollered, and it meant I have never been so humiliated. Yasmeen and I couldn't help it. We laughed till our tummies hurt. So did Michael and the other tourists in front of the mixed knits display. Only Billy and Mrs. Miggins missed out. Billy because of his disc man, and Mrs. Miggins because she has no sense of humor. "Your cat was annoying Leo G," she said to me. I gulped to stop myself from laughing. Sorry. Chapter 24. Yasmeen had to go home for dinner, but "I'll be over tomorrow at 7:45 sharp," she said. "We need to work on our list. Tomorrow we solve the mystery." I didn't tell her that I had one more name to add to the list. Yasmeen Pop. I didn't want to add it, but she was the one who said a detective has to look at the evidence, right? That a detective can't let feelings get in the way. Back in the den, I wrote Yasmeen, and under Y, I wrote person you least suspect. Fast. Ditched me to return swan. So now there were 4 official suspects: Yasmeen, Mrs. Miggins, Mr. Stone, and Bub, plus Officer Crishel's pick, Sophie Sikora. I looked at the list and shook my head. None of them seemed precisely right. We needed more evidence, but I didn't even know where to look. "Anybody home?" Dad called. "In here," I answered, and at the same time my stomach growled. Detecting was hungry work, and all I had eaten since noon was a bowl of soup. After Dad put his packages away, he fixed spaghetti for dinner. I was telling him how Officer Crishells thought Sophie was the bird thief. When Mom came home, she said hi, then went upstairs and changed into sweatpants, sweatshirt, and the fuzzy slippers I had given her for her birthday. Back in the kitchen, she looked at her watch and said, "Want to see something funny?" We followed her into the den, and she turned on the TV. There she was on the screen talking to Stan, the local news guy. "Detective Parakeet," Stan said, "is it fair to characterize this rash of burglaries as a holiday crime wave?" "I don't think a sensational label serves the public good, do you, Stan?" Mom said. "Toy mice have been taken from 4 stores in a 50-mile radius of College Springs. That seems to be the extent of the crime wave." "Should homeowners take additional security measures?" Stan asked. "It is wise to be prudent," Mom said, "but I see no cause for alarm." The station cut to a commercial for cat food. Luau hadn't come home yet. I figured he was looking for a beauty salon that stayed open late. It was too bad he had to miss this commercial, though. Some of the cats were very good looking. 4 stores, I said to Mom. So it wasn't only Mega Menagerie? "It's a mouse crime wave," Mom said. "And you know what? Police remain baffled." "Poor Mom," I said. "Poor me," she agreed. "But hey, on the bright side, Fred Crishells tells me who stole the 12 days of Christmas." "Did Sophie confess?" I asked. "Not exactly," Mom said. She told him she didn't know anything about a calling bird in their bird bath, and her parents backed her up. Then she had one of her tantrums, and of course, they blamed poor Fred. Honestly, that child is so spoiled. "But spoiled doesn't necessarily make her a thief," I said. Dad looked at me. You sound like you don't agree with Officer Crishel's assessment. I told my parents Yasmeen and I had some evidence Officer Crishel's didn't care about. Like what? Mom said. I hated that moment. She was looking at me and waiting. Not mad, not yet, but I had a feeling she was going to be. I took a breath, then told her everything I should have told her last night. How I kicked over the milk pail, found the mice, and hid them in my bathrobe. As I talked, I shrank. I thought if I were already tiny, she wouldn't need to yell so loud. But shrinking didn't help. Alex, parakeet, she exploded. I have spent the day gallivanting around the countryside while all the time you were sitting here with the best evidence we've got. Don't you see? This changes the whole case. Officer Crishel's didn't think it mattered. I said in the tiniest voice. I will speak with Officer Crishel's later, she said. Now bring me those mice. When I got back downstairs, Mom was lacing her shoes and talking on the phone. Meet me downtown as soon as you can, she nodded at a plastic bag on the counter. I put the mice in. She zipped it up. Okay, see you then. Bye. She hung up. All this trouble for toys, she said to me. Then she looked at Dad. Don't wait up. It may be another late night. Oh, and no more escapades, Alex Parakeet. Stay in your bed. I nodded. I was hoping she'd give me a kiss or at least a smile before she left. But she just grabbed her jacket and mittens and walked out the door. She was really in a hurry. She was still wearing her sweats. She didn't even stop to put on makeup. Chapter 25. I went to bed before Mom got back. My brain wanted to know what she found out, but my eyelids refused to cooperate. They kept falling shut. Luau finally came home, and now he was curled up on my feet. He had done an amazing job cleaning off the slobber. He didn't even smell like Leo G anymore. My dreams were terrible. I felt like Alice falling down the rabbit hole. The faces of the suspects whirled around me. The head of the Cheshire Cat grinned. Only this Cheshire Cat had pink eyes. I sat up so fast I felt dizzy. For a second I thought I was still spiraling down the hole. Then I realized Luau wasn't on my feet. Is that what woke me? Luau jumping off the bed? But wait, what was that horrible noise? Oh my gosh! The 12 days of Christmas at full volume. And the 12-day lights were blaring too. That must have been what woke me. The ultimate holiday alarm clock. By now, everyone on Chickadee Court must be awake. What was going on? I looked out the window. With the lights, the street seemed bright as day. Nothing in our yard. Nothing on the sidewalk. Nothing at the Lees. I ran to the bathroom. I stood on the toilet. I pushed things aside. Now I could see the Pop's yard. That's where he was. A kid holding a milk bucket. A kid so still. He almost looked like another 12-day decoration. But on which day of Christmas did my true love give to me Michael Jensen? Mom had told me to stay in bed, but she hadn't counted on this. No one on Chickadee Court could stay in bed now. I sprinted down the stairs and opened the front door. Then I remembered my toes and had a good idea. Snow boots. They were by the front at her. Well, my friends, we're almost done. So Miss Hope's reading hour is going to go a little long because now we got to find out what happened. Chapter 26.